Well, last summer, news broke of endemic modern slavery across textile factories in Leicester. COVID-19 shone attention on an issue that has plagued Leicester for decades. Conditions were found to be hazardous and inhumane, with thousands of workers subjected to coercion, intimidation, forced labour and monetary exploitation as well.
Well, government agencies, the police and the council launched a joint investigation into the working conditions and financial exploitation of workers across Leicester. But in spite of this, there are reports that workers are still being exploited. Well, it's great to be joined now in the studio by Andrew Bridgen, local MP for North West Leicestershire, and someone who has really fought to raise this issue before it became prominent in the national media. Welcome to GBNews, Andrew. What's your initial response to this idea that these reports are suggesting this is still going on, despite all the media attention, despite all of the initiatives?
Well, I'm well aware of these reports. Witnesses came to me 10 months ago and said that the unscrupulous employers in Leicester in the textile trade, to get round the minimum wage requirements, they were actually on paper paying the minimum wages to their staff, so they were getting legitimate pay slips which they could show to the authorities, but they were having a post-it note put on them with the amount of cash they'd got to go immediately to the cash point machine and give back to the employer. And they were also paying the staff 6 weeks in arrears, so if the staff didn't comply with their demands, their extortion of their money, they just didn't pay them the last 6 weeks' wages, and that's how they were getting round the minimum wage requirements. So the exploitation is still going on. They've just found another conduit for it. And all of this information was passed by me and witnesses to the National Crime Agency 10 months ago.
And it's still going on, particularly amongst some migrant communities. Am I right in saying that? These are the people that are being exploited by
Well, there's two levels of
employers.
exploitation. You've got your legal workers, British citizens, who are legally allowed to work here, and they're being exploited by having to return a large proportion of their wages in cash to their employer. And then, of course, you've got the illegal workers who've got no right to work here in the black market. They would be the asylum seekers who've failed their final appeal. They'll abscond, and also visa overstayers, and they will be treated actually even worse. They're on about £3.50 an hour cash in hand. They will be living 20 to a house on mattresses, appalling lifestyle, very poor working conditions, and effectively it's modern slavery. These people have no choices. They wouldn't choose a lifestyle like that.
Yeah, and why is this still going on, and why does there seem to be such a lack of action around it? I know the government, that there's a modern slavery helpline that was launched, and over the years it has seen an increasing number of calls to that helpline, but it almost seems like we're almost so preoccupied, almost talking about slavery from hundreds of years ago. We're more preoccupied doing that than talking about the slavery that's actually happening in Britain today.
Well, the facts are, Mercy, there are actually probably more people in conditions of modern slavery today than have ever been in slavery. This hasn't gone away, it's just changed. And of course, as we're a prosperous country with a minimum wage, a legal minimum wage, there's huge incentive for unscrupulous employers to undercut that. And one of the big problems is that these illegal and immoral employers are actually putting legitimate businesses who are doing the right thing by their staff out of business. And it's got to be found out, it's got to be stopped. It's like a cancer spreading in the city of Leicester. It's predominantly in the garment industry. And you've got systemic failure of all the protections for those vulnerable workers. It's failed in the city, and a lot of the blame must go to the Labour Party. It's a Labour-controlled city. There's 52 Labour councillors, one Lib Dem, and as of last week, the first Conservative councillor was elected in Leicester East in a very, very long time. We need more representation, and you've got to hold that council to account for systemic failures.
So this is predominantly a council failure from this sort of one-party state here, that all but two councillors of one party not holding, not enacting the laws as they stand. What could government do to step in here? What do you want to see the government?
Pretty has put in a task force into Leicester because there's huge issues also with HMRC. There's systemic VAT avoidance in that trade as well, which is costing the country an awful lot of money, and working with external bodies, immigration, and of course the police. But this has gone on the local police and the fire brigades watch. They haven't inspected these buildings. There's no fire regs, there's no fire escapes, they're locked. These are unsafe buildings. A lot of the factories actually are in condemned buildings, and when you ask the council, how can anyone work in a building where the windows are all bricked in and there's cardboard pushed against the inside? They say, well, we never get any complaints from those buildings. That's no excuse. Everyone knows in Leicester what's going on, and someone's got to take responsibility for it.
So harsher penalties, what can they do? Harsher penalties for the people who found out, more investigations into those buildings? I mean, what needs to be done to actually get on top of the problem?
Well, we need to find out who's failed to do their duty to protect citizens from exploitation. It has been going on for a very long time. It's Leicester's dirty secret, and it's not a secret anymore.
No, well, thank you very much for bringing it up here. While we've got you, I'm interested to talk about another story that hasn't really been that well reported, and that's, of course, the Member of Parliament for Leicester East, someone I know that, Mercy, you're not a particular fan of, and we spoke about...
Is anybody? I'd be surprised if anybody is.
This is, of course, Claudia Webb, formerly a Labour MP, now an independent as she's suspended from the party, facing trial. Is it next week? Is it next month?
No, it's in September, to the end of September. Well, it's the Leicester East is where all the sweatshops are located that I've found. Obviously, the former member for Leicester East was Keith Vaz. He was the MP there for 33 years. He was chairman of the Home Affairs Select Committee. How couldn't he have known about this Labour exploitation, widespread, endemic within his constituency? I don't think he ever raised this issue once, and quite worryingly, I think that there are speculations that were Claudia Webb to be found guilty at her trial and was recalled, that Mr Vaz is planning his return to Parliament, which doesn't bear thinking about.
Wow. Well, that is an extraordinary situation there. I mean, I suppose we can't speculate on the result of that trial, but that, if it were to go the wrong way for Claudia Webb, a recall petition, I suppose, could be instated by the people of Leicester East. What is the political repercussion of what's going on here? I mean, you say the council is overwhelmingly controlled by the Labour Party. There doesn't seem to be a democratic backlash against everything that's going on here. It seems to be sort of business as usual as far as politics is concerned.
The people of Leicester deserve far better than this, and these slave wages are depressing the economy in the city and preventing its regeneration. If people want change in the city of Leicester, if they want change anywhere else, they can't keep voting for the same parties into power.
Well, Andrew Bridgen, thank you so much for bringing us this story. It's one that we will certainly keep an eye on.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.